Hello, welcome to part 3 of the Brave and Blissful workshop. I'm still Amy, this is still Michelle, and we are bringing you the third part. So today's topic is going to be influence with vision. And if you missed parts 1 and 2, they were about motivating yourself and your team and balancing act of handling your own stuff and that of your team. So we are really excited you guys have joined us today. And Michelle, what are we going to cover today?
We are going to cover this agenda. So we're going to tackle the key questions that folks have asked, that people have asked in regards to servant leadership. How do I serve my team? How do I serve myself? What does that look like? Creative learning out loud. So we love creativity and solving problems creatively, limiting beliefs creatively. So we're going to tackle some of those. And some of the key questions have to do with identifying individual needs, as well as creating group goals and vision while you're influencing behavior, and then tackling some of those limiting beliefs that tend to get in our way. So that's what's on tap for today.
Yes, love it.
Excellent. All right. So we will dive in the key questions.
So we love to ask people what's going on, where do they need help? And this topic of servant leadership brought up a couple of key ones that we're going to address in today's topics. So what does servant leadership mean to me? And more importantly, what does it mean to the team? What should their expectations be? And how do I frame it so we're all on the same page? And what do I do if they don't actually work for me? So oftentimes we think about leadership in more of a boss subordinate kind of way, but there's lots of ways to lead, and you don't have to be in a position where you can actually tell someone what to do to still be a leader. So we're going to cover some of that too.
Yeah, I mean, influencing, right? Influencing how things get done without necessarily telling somebody what to do.
Exactly.
That's lovely. All right, let's go for it. So, part of the creative learning out loud is coming up with quotes or poems or stuff that resonate with people. So we just were mentioning influence at work, and what does that mean? So we've heard this term, there's no I in team, which there isn't, but there's an I in individual and there's an I in influence. So that's something that I say on a regular basis. And what that means is it's important for us to pay attention to the collective, and then also the people that are in that collective, that are in that team, what they want, why they want it, so then we can influence how to get something done for the group.
Yeah, so there's a book that is called Traction. It's by Gino Wickman. And in there is a really, thank you, Michelle.
There you go.
And in there is a really cool visualization. Picture, if you will, a boat full of people. And as a leader, you're trying to get the boat full of these people to move from point A to point B. And the idea is to get everyone to row in the same direction. And you can understand the importance of influence and individual. If you've got one person paddling backwards, your boat's going to be going in a circle. While everyone else is trying to propel you forward, you're spinning your wheels, literally in this case. And that visual just made a ton of sense to me, because as a leader, you have various people with various roles. So if it's a crew team, you've got someone calling out the cadence. You've got someone kind of keeping an eye on where the heck are we going while everyone else is facing backwards and just, doing the rowing. So you can see there's different roles. There's someone running point. There's lots of elements that make sense when it comes to leading.
I mean, you don't want to row in a circle.
That seems like it's not going to win the race, and I like winning, so no.
I love that analogy, because again, you've got you've got individuals that have particular roles. someone calling point, someone rowing, and they're hopefully rowing in unison. That way you can get to where you want to go.
Right.
I love that. Okay, so the first area is identifying individuals' needs. So if we go back to that original question, the first question was, what does servant leadership mean to me? And more importantly, what does it mean to the team? So, I mean, I really like the idea of, I love asking questions. So my thing is asking questions and getting at the heart of what somebody wants to do. So what do they want to do and why do they want to do it? And it's individual for each person. So we don't, what I want is maybe different than what Amy wants or somebody else in my team wants. And that's really critical to determining how what servant leadership means to me and how I serve the team, why it's important to the rest of the members of the team and how they're going to get their needs met. That's the point of this.
Yep. And then the GWC is again coming from that Traction book. So Traction is kind of a blueprint for the entrepreneurial operating system. And so in there are lots of tools about treating your business like a business, even if you haven't done it before. There's key components that you need to know how big or small you are. And GWC is about the people in the boat. And so I'll describe what each one means. So capability to do it means, do they have the knowledge? Do you understand the strategy? Do they the things you can teach someone? Capability is in that lane. Want it is desire. Do they care? Do they want to move the boat from point A to point B?
Are they motivated?
Yeah, are they motivated? And G is, do they get it? This one, to me, feels a bit more like a gut. Do they understand the mission of the organization, and can they get themselves behind what we're trying to accomplish from almost a mindset standpoint? So let me give you an example. So I was helping a friend run a company, and we had a team of managers, and these managers, this work environment was very fast-paced. It was a lot of putting out fires kind of thing. And so we attracted a lot of people who like that kind of work to our management team. And to me, they seemed rather overworked. But we are operating kind of like a confederacy versus a nation as far as a team. And so what we realized, my friend who is the CEO of the company, that we really needed to create a vision for this organization. And this one individual on our team, we tried her in various roles. We tried her here, it wasn't quite working out, so we shifted her here. And it wasn't quite working out, and we shifted it here. It wasn't quite working out. And when we learned this concept of GWC, what we learned was she gets it. Like, there's a reason why we wanted to make it fit, because she gets it. And she actually had the skills. We exhausted all the possibilities of determining, do we give enough instruction? Are we clear? She just didn't want it. And we were able to give ourselves a little grace that, oh, it's not personal. The desire, the motivation isn't there. So we found a way to peacefully part ways. And it was beautiful. As a leader, sometimes you want to keep pouring your heart and soul into people, and diminishing returns can fall into this want-it lane.
And so that was amicable, right? I mean, that you because you used this tool, this method, you were able to identify that and have a dialogue with her in regards to get it, want it, capability to do it.
Yeah.
And then we're like, okay, this is not working. Maybe it makes more sense for you to go do something else.
Yeah, I had this come up with another team I was on as well. I had someone in a role, and they were not meeting expectations, and they're a good person. I really liked them. It just wasn't where their desire resided. And so when you can amicably get to that point, it's beautiful because they're going to be able to pursue something that makes them happier. And you're not continuing to pour into someone who just, they don't want what you're trying to pour into them.
Yeah. What's your dad's money quote?
So my dad coached volleyball for over 2 decades, and he was famous for saying, you can't coach desire. Which I didn't really get until I started seeing it kind of in a professional setting. I'm like,
now you get it.
Right. Yeah. It's so true. And Michelle, we had a client who had a lot of direct reports, and she had another view on this.
Yeah. She had 80 people. Right? We did a training, I don't know, sometime last year, and there was a gal that showed up and said, well, my manager's not helping me, or, my team leader's not helping me. I don't know how to move forward. And, our client spoke up and said, I have 80 people underneath of me. I cannot possibly go this deep. It's not my responsibility to figure out what they want and why they want it. Although, I mean, what she was articulating is, she can help navigate. Like in your case, if you set the stage for people, let's use her example, 80 people, she could use get it, want it capability to do it. Here's your cheat sheet. Write it down, right? What do you want? Why do you want it? Do you get, this is our vision. And what do you want and why do you want it? Put that on paper, and then we'll see if the capabilities match. But ideally, it's her job to figure out if she has someone that's completely engaged. So they have all three of those things, right? They get it, they want it, they have the capability to do it. You help them navigate that waters like you did in this particular case, but it's not the leader's responsibility to identify it, especially if you have that many people. They need to do some of the work, but we as leaders can help them get to that place. So they've identified it.
Yeah. So it's the individual's responsibility to bring to their leadership, here's what help looks like from you, leader. And it's the manager's or leader's ability to zoom out and go, okay, do they check these boxes or not? Because it is about engagement, and where can we help our people be more engaged? If there's training or if there's strategy, like that's the leader's job. But they're not responsible for all the things. The individuals are responsible as well. Yeah.
And I do think it's the responsibility of the leader to create a mechanism to define it.
Absolutely.
So this is one mechanism. There are others, but creating this mechanism, say, here, go write it down, and then come back to me, and then let's see what matches up. That I think makes total sense.
Yep. Nailed it.
Cool. So the second part is the creating group goals. And question number 2 was, what should their expectations be, and how do I frame it so we are all on the same page? So that's where creating group goals come in, and then all these bits, this 1 through 5.
Yeah. So the example with the GWC manager, that team of the Confederacy of managers were brought in to a visioning exercise where the CEO set a big, hairy, audacious goal and said, Amy and I are not capable to figure out all the steps it's going to take to get from where we are now to where we want to go. But collectively as a team, we can take those steps. So we figured out what was, the ideal client, an avatar of an ideal client. What makes us special? How are we different? What do we stand for? What are our values as an organization? And what was magical for me was watching this team in quotes of managers coalesce and become an actual team with something bigger to work towards than just the fire drill daily work. We had regular touch points where we were making progress on these goals, and people were volunteering to pick up pieces of the work about which they were passionate. And when they
I love that.
and when they came in to share, you could see like a spark in
Yeah,
their
nice.
eyes. And for this particular team, they tended to be on the younger side, and they're like, I've never had someone ask my opinion in this way. And so the engagement through the roof because they felt like they had skin in the game. So as I look at these 5 actions here, it's like we got to touch on all of them in just this process that we went through, and everyone felt like we are really doing something special here. It was fantastic.
I love that. And so you mentioned earlier, you started with the vision and the mission statement, so everybody could see, like, this is what we're working to do. This is what we're aiming for. That's 4. And then 1 was, what do we need? What are the outcomes expected? What are those goals that we want? You then had each member be part of that decision-making process because they've never been asked before.
Yeah.
So you got input, their voice was heard. And so that's on that is number 3, 2 and 3. And then 5 was like, they were helping one another, they're serving one another, which is fantastic.
Yeah. And when you're able as a leader to go, I don't have all the answers. This is such an ambitious goal. It's going to take the collective to solve it. To me, starting from there was the magic. And then the process is how you get the enrollment. But people love to be part of the solution. And that's part of how you can get engagement. So
I love that.
So, Michelle, with those questions at the beginning, what do I do if they don't actually work for me? Got an example for that one?
I do. So this falls into the I'm not technically the boss. I'm not the one that these people report to, and I'm using influence in some way. So I'm sure you have, Amy. I've been members of a volunteer organization historically. I've been a leader of a volunteer organization. So none of those people are getting paid. Nobody's making any money. So it becomes even more important to determine what their individual needs are and then go through this process. So I was a chapter president for the Project Management Institute of Wisconsin. We had our vision and mission statement, and then we were determining what our outcomes were going to be for that given year. Then we've got new volunteers coming to the table, new people like, what do you want me to do? I want to get involved. These are the things that are my sweet spot. So in that example, we were able to identify their needs. We went through the process of our outcomes, figuring out what we wanted to do that year, and putting people in the right spots based on why they're showing up, what they expect to get out of it. So that's I think a good example of how you can motivate people when they're not getting paid, or they may not report to you. You use creating group goals and these 1 through 5 steps in conjunction with identifying their needs to determine how to get everybody rowing in the same direction.
Yep. Yeah. Leading a team of volunteers can be more art than science sometimes.
For sure.
But the principle of treating people well and trying to determine what's in it for them, that applies whether it's a direct report or not. You still want everyone to feel fulfilled, and they're still going to be more engaged if you solve for that. So it applies in both cases.
Exactly. So that covers question 1, question 2, question 3 from what we covered earlier this morning.
Mhm.
covered period. So now what we want to do is dive into limiting beliefs.
Yeah. So,
Some of them.
Michelle and I had the opportunity to engage with a senior leader retreat. So these are people who have hundreds, sometimes thousands of people who are looking to them for leadership. And we asked, what's going on, what keeps you up at night, kind of thing. And I'm going to share these because they may or may not resonate, but I wanted to point out it doesn't really matter where you are in leadership. Some of these limiting beliefs will show up kind of no matter where you are in the ladder. So not being the leader they want to be or what everyone expects them to be. I'm not good enough to lead my large team. I'll make a mistake. Or imposter syndrome. Do I really belong here? So this is what we're going to tackle next.
Doozy.
Yeah, right?
Okay, so we have, there's those three they could land in the self-worth camp. Am I worthy to be here? Am I good enough? So we're going to use an example. This is a tool and an example. So we had a client that was new in a leadership role, new team, new organization, all the news, all the new things. She was feeling like a fish out of water in all three of those examples. So not being the leader they wanted to be, she's not being the leader that she wants to be, or everyone's expecting her to be, not good enough to do what she's wanting to do. And do I really belong here?
Yeah.
So this self-worth inventory is a way to start finding out what's going on and how to tackle or just create an awareness around what to do next. So you'll see this grid, which is 0 to 10, 0 being, I know nothing. I'm feeling really not great. 10 feeling like I'm a rock star here. So you can take 1 through 7. I'm just going to go through these really quickly. And we did this with our client. So she took this, and first thing she did was look for her physical appearance. How does she feel about what she wears and how she shows up and her hair and just how she's put together. Number 2, how do you relate to others? How did she relate to others? What is the social environments of working with other people in the workplace and in business and her personal life? Where's she at on that scale? Number 3, personality. How does she show up to the world? How does she feel about her own strengths and weaknesses? Where's she at on that spectrum? Number 4 is, how do others see you, or how do others, in this case, how do others see her? What does her best friend say about her? And how does it compare to what she thinks about herself from a personality perspective? And then 5 is performance at work or school. Actually doing the work that you're intending to do. How do you feel about that? It goes back to the capabilities. Right? Amy, you talked about that earlier for traction. Then number 6 is performance of daily tasks. This is stuff like brushing my teeth or making food or just basic life skills. Number 7 is mental functioning. So how do I feel about critical thinking and problem solving? So once she went through this, she used the grid. She marked down, where she was at, and where she came to was the number 5, performance at work or school, was the one that was low, right? I think it was in a 1 or 2 dial as far as, on the lower side. The other ones were higher. She had some that were 6, 7, and then some of them that were 8 or 9. but the number 5 was the lower one. So that was an aha. She's like, oh, I don't suck at all these things. Right?
Isn't that so true? We're like, everything's terrible. And you're like, is it? Maybe not.
No, right. And what she found was because she was wobbling in number 5, she started to second guess these other pieces. And so that we talk about a wheel, right? So if we're riding a bike and we have one spoke that is cattywampus or like pulled out of the wheel, if it's pulled out, you're not going to be able to turn that wheel. So if that one spoke is jammed up, it's going to have the potential to jam up the whole wheel and the movement of the wheel. So you may not have to fix all the spokes. Maybe your whole wheel's busted. I don't know, but it might not be that. And it may just be one spoke. So work on that one spoke and don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Just focus on that particular thing. Bathwater is bad, not the baby.
What I love about that is that, when we were in a self-worth crisis, our energy is a little low because we're feeling down. But to be able to use this, I like the visual of the wheel and the spokes. If you can nudge and love that one spoke back into place gently, then kind of get back to moving through life a bit more harmoniously. It's gentler. And when we're talking about limiting beliefs, like being gentle to ourselves is going to be really important, because a lot of us, myself 100% included, are really good at being very self-critical. And sometimes that's not exactly the solution that's required.
Yeah. So this is a really good technique, tool to help navigate some of those limiting beliefs and that self-worth wobble.
Yeah. Love that tool.
All right.
So imposter syndrome. I'm just going to read this little excerpt from a poem. I don't think the battle ever stops. Relentlessly choosing, I am worthy. Consistent rejection of the thoughts to the contrary. So I don't know if this resonates for anyone else, but for me, I don't think that bully in my head is ever going to go away completely. But if I can, when that imposter syndrome shows up, when I can say, not today, and just get through whatever task I'm going through, over time, the muscle of setting a boundary internally with my imposter syndrome will get stronger and more comfortable. And there are moments when it's harder than others. Now, some people don't have imposter syndrome. I can't imagine walking through life feeling confident like that. That sounds weird and foreign. But for me, I have just decided to accept that it's going to be one of those things that I monitor. That's it.
Nice.
Yeah. So, the end of the Brave and Blissful workshop. I really, really hope you guys were able to get some useful tools out of this. It's been a real delight to put this together, to address some of these, questions that kept popping up for folks, and to cobble together some tools and some examples and some ideas about how to plow through these things versus just keep getting stopped and frustrated.
Nice. Thank you, Amy. And we invite you to go deeper with us. So stay tuned for what's next, what we're doing next. You'll be the first to know. But however, if you want help right now, we're just a phone call away. Just tap us on the shoulder and say, hey, can we chat? We want to leave people better than we found them, regardless of whether they work with us or not. So stay tuned for what's next. And if you need help right now, just reach out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Y'all have a great day. Bye.
Bye.